Well, Janet, thank you for doing this. You've been a longtime fan of the podcast, and we're just going to talk a little bit what you are, who you are, how you found the show, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Very good. Oh, so
yeah, just jump right in.
Yeah,
who you are, how you found the
Why
show.
don't I? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a New Zealander, and I live, well, how far away from you guys? I'm not sexually, I can't remember. I worked it out.
Oh, you did. I remember you sent me.
I did. 8,418 miles from Grand Rapids. There you go. So I live in a town called Waitara in Taranaki, and I have lived only ever in 3 houses. I've only ever lived in the same town. I lived in a house I grew up in, and when I first got married, we rented while we had a house built, and the house that Gary and I now live in, I've been in for 43 years. So
wow.
I'm pretty much stayed in my surroundings, I guess.
Yeah.
So we brought up 2 children. So they're adults with growing children. My oldest grandson is 17 and the youngest is 10. So there's 5 of them. So we get to see them reasonably frequently. So my career background was nursing, so caring for people, various jobs. I worked, I don't know, we have doctors that work in the community with a set of practices they're called general practitioners or GP.
Yeah.
And so I worked for GPs in Waitara. And my mum had dementia, so she could no longer live on her own. So we built a cottage for her on our property. And so I looked after her for a while, and I didn't really go back to nursing after that. So I just we were lucky enough that I was in a position that I didn't actually have to be working to provide an income for the family. So we...
So you got started in gig work. When did that start?
That was my mum died in 2015.
Okay.
So after that, there were a few elderly people that I would take to doctor's visits and to the supermarket and things like that. But it actually got to a point where it was costing me money. And so I thought, let's see if we can make a business out of this. So there's a couple of organizations that do trips and stuff for elderly people. One's called Driving Miss Daisy, and then another one that's called Freedom. Didn't quite suit my profile, so we sort of started. I needed to have a passenger service license, so I started with that, and then Uber was launching at about the same time. So Uber launched on the 9th of October 2019, and I worked through the process of being an Uber partner. And so on the 1st of December 2019 was my first ride, and I was absolutely racked with getting it. I think I did 3 trips and earned something like $43, and I thought I'd won $1 million. So, but that was my start. And it's just sort of gone uphill from there. I don't have another paid job, and there's just Gary and I at home. So it suited us really well that I could, when I wanted to dabble, or just turn the app on and go out and drive. So that's it's been pretty good. When COVID struck 3 years ago now, so I think the 15th of March, I think, was our shutdown. So there were 7 weeks where actually no drivers. Basically the Uber shut down.
Right.
Well, we didn't, like everybody else, we didn't know how it was going to go. Right. And then the first couple of weeks we were back, it was just Rob and I. So it was a bit slow, and it was interesting. Initially, there was no mandate for wearing masks, and then we had nearly a year where it was mandated that the drivers, taxis, rideshare drivers had to wear masks, but our passengers didn't.
So let me stop you 1 second, Jen, because one thing I caught on to one thing you said, and I think the audience need to pay attention to this because it's kind of
Mhm.
interesting. You said
Oh,
it's just Rob and you, right? Just you and Rob driving. And so that means you are the only two Uber drivers in the market driving, correct?
in that first week when this first weeks when we came back, yes,
Right.
it was.
And how big is your market?
The New Plymouth district is about 89,000 people. So that includes the city and the towns surrounding. New Plymouth City on its own is about 59,000.
But
So
still,
I live
a reasonable mid-sized market. And here you are. This is the kind of interesting part to me is we have a market, but I mean, it's not that smaller than Grand Rapids, and you had two drivers.
Yeah, we were still in that awakening period with Uber.
Sure.
So Uber hadn't really taken off then.
Okay.
Ola, which is the other rideshare that we have in Taranaki, that launched about 2 weeks before the shutdown, and that has never ever taken off.
Okay.
That's part of just being available. And people don't think about rideshare. All they think about is it's Uber. Whether if I'm doing a private ride or people are questioning me about my private work, they all still think that it's Uber. And
Yeah.
Uber was in that position that it got it sort of locked into the market. It took a long time for flights, for driving for flights or picking up and dropping off. It a lot of the progress in the development of the awareness of Uber actually came from visitors from out of town, people who had been overseas and used it, people from Auckland and Wellington that have used it, and they would come in. Still, people will often say, oh, how, I didn't know we had Uber here. Well, Uber's now been here for over 3.5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's word of mouth.
It's crazy that Uber hasn't done any like advertising for people down there to use the platform. You think it would be all over their phones and Facebook and all that stuff.
Yeah. If you've shown an interest and you've logged and you've loaded the app, yes, you do get notifications through the app, but it's not. It's still word of mouth.
Okay.
So, but now, yeah, I think in that little period when there was only Rob and I, it was just that people still weren't sure how it was going to go with COVID. Right. So we actually we nearly went for a year before the country mandated that everybody had to wear masks in rideshare and taxis. That made it a hell of a lot fairer to us, because it meant the passengers were making a contribution as well. I have been very pedantic about masks, and I have had 4 vaccinations plus boosters, and I have not had COVID.
Oh,
and
wow.
Neither is Gary. So we're a bit smug, I suppose. But yeah, still trying. So when I've been driving, still at this time where pretty much nobody wears masks much anymore, I still wear a mask. And as I say to my few passengers will get in and say, oh, I haven't got a mask. And I said, that's okay. This is my choice. But I would hate to sit there having picked up the virus a couple of days ago and then pass it on to my next passengers.
Yeah, that's fair. That's nice of you to do that.
Yeah. So and to be fair, I've just got used to it. I understand, Jasper, what you're saying about the your glasses fogging up, but it just takes a little bit of organizing, moving things around and getting them right.
And I get that. I just never wanted to. It was an excuse.
Sure. So I actually had a little side hustle with the COVID. When we had the first shutdown, I actually approached the local pharmacy and said, look, if there's anything I can do, let me know. And she just about jumped through the phone and grabbed hold of me. And so I delivered the medications from the pharmacy, because we were locked down and people had to get their stuff. So I just had a thought. So what I did is I we came up with a price per delivery or per address. So sometimes it was initially we had to do it twice a day. There was so much, and then we got to once a day. And like if I went to the rest home and there were 3 different patients, well, it was still only 1 delivery.
Yeah.
And but the good thing was I had, I think one day I had 25 deliveries. Nice. And so knowing the town, they all went into order, a bit like the postie does. And it took me, I don't know, about a couple of hours, and it was a really good income.
Well,
so,
yeah.
So that was good. So the other thing I did is I made the face masks, just like what you guys got. So in total, I made 2,307 masks.
Wow.
So actually, a couple of days ago, sorry. Some of the masks I sold personally. A few I sold from the car. So I had a little. My daughter-in-law made up a little advertising thing, which I slotted in and people could see. So I sold a few masks from the car, but the masks actually, the bulk of them were sold by the pharmacy, and I just had to make them and take them down. So I've just withdrawn them this week. We only sold 2 in the last 3 months. So I said, well, we'll pull it and see how we go. So
Janet, can you tell me how you found the show? I always forget when I hear how you found, or when I ask people, I don't remember.
Sorry, your question, there was a little blank spot for me.
Oh,
you're asking about how I got to know you guys?
Correct.
It's a lonely job, and so you talk to the passengers and you get the same, how long have you been Ubering? I didn't know Uber was here. Blah 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 like that. So there's lots of that. So there's a lot of repetitive things, but you'd actually it's lonely because you don't actually get a personal attachment to it.
Yep.
So I looked for information. We don't meet. We don't have get-togethers where we can talk. Rob and I, once we found each other, it was great. So I started looking for information, and just in a search, I picked up the Grand Rapids podcast. So I started listening to them, and then when I met Rob, what I used to do, I used to watch out for the other drivers. So I used to watch on the passenger app where they were parked up, and we have to have if we have the kiddie locks activated on our cars, we have to have a red sticker on the outside, the passenger doors at the back, to say that the kiddie locks are active. So it's easy to pick out the cars. So if they were parked up, I used to go up behind them and I used to give them my business card, and I used to say, "Hi, I'm Janet. I'm an Uber driver, if you want to meet or whatever." And I had a chance meeting with Rob. He was dropping somebody off at one of the hotels, and I pulled in behind him. So I walked up to him. I actually recognized him as he had been a local businessman, and gave him a card. We've got the same cultural background, I guess. So him and I hit it off, and we used to meet in one of the car parks when later on in the evening when it was quieter, and we started to chat. So I said to Rob, "Look, I've found this group," and he did exactly the same as I did. We went right back to the beginning of the podcast, and we listened to everything, and we soaked it in, all the little tips and all that. And then one day I came into listening to the podcast live, the live streaming, and I think that was actually probably about the January. So it was probably January 2020, something like that. And pretty much I have maybe only missed about 3 streamings. I really try. And it's sort of fitting in the time difference actually doesn't make too much of a problem, because I'm not sure what the time is. I can't see, where are we?
2:30.
It's 2:30 in the afternoon. So so one of the casts, you were putting up the information about the Telegram group, and Jesper sent me the invitation, and I joined in. And
awesome.
I've got a bit of, I like to listen to everything, so sometimes it's definitely quietened down for a long time, and sometimes I would log off and have a look, and then the next morning I'd have nobody had said anything. But some days now we've got if I haven't dipped in for a few hours, there still could be 100 or so messages, but it's really good. So there's a lot of fun banter. There's a little bit of talk about what we're doing, where we are, what the weather, well, for you guys, what the weather is. Rob has now got a new job, so he's been, I think he's probably been about 15 months since he's actually done Uber passengers. So yeah, I really miss him. And we actually had one of the other drivers who was Sri Lankan, and he joined us. So I named us the Three Musketeers. We just the three of us got together, and it was really interesting because I'm a bit yappy and I leave messages, and Amila, every couple of months we actually, the three of us went out for dinner so we could actually relax and chat.
Nice.
And he was telling us sometimes about colloquial language that we use, like getting pissed. It only had one meaning for him. So, some of those things, I can't remember. There was another couple of things that we said that were confusing for him. Okay. But he also moved on, and he left Uber passengers he did pick up Uber Eats, but he went off to be an early childhood teacher. So we went to do some training. Okay. So we haven't seen him for quite a while. So
it sounds like you need to hand some more
it's just amazing, just the little things that you guys say. And Jesper, you said earlier on the feed today about the markets being different, and yes, they are. Just the Uber, the quests and the opportunities and stuff that you get, we get nothing here.
Right.
It is really frustrating because we work our heart out and we don't get some of those opportunities. But I'm prepared. Often you've said something that may be happening in your market, and eventually it works through to ours. So one of the things was there was some talk about, we get at least weekly, we will get messages through Uber about referring a friend.
Okay. Yep.
So the offer is that we will get $500, and the person that's registering gets $500. I think they have to do 100 rides within 3 months. But when the market is full of drivers, why would you be wanting to bring more people in? And I started, sorry.
No, I was just going to say Uber is doing the same here now, but just so you understand, our market here right now, the deal is $75 because there's so many drivers. So that's what we get as a referral bonus. And I know it's different because it's not
one of the things that when I started, I have a friend, Ronnie Coombs, who lives in Brisbane, and when we were talking to him, and he was so passionate. He does Uber passengers in Brisbane, and he was so passionate, and he was really supportive of me, and he that was part of where he was somebody I knew and someone I trusted. He did Uber, and that's why I stepped in, and because he's a friend of Gary's, so that was really good because he got that positive from there. But Rod gave me his reference code, and for everything that he did, I believe that he was the one that should have got the reference bonus. But because he wasn't in my market or I wasn't in his market, they weren't interested. So I think that's a bit sad.
Yeah.
So
Janet, real quick. So obviously Uber is your full gig. That's all you do. How many hours a week do you drive?
So I'm a bit mixed at the moment. I used to do up over 40 hours a week. So it just depends. At the moment, there's quite a lot of drivers, and so we have a lot of waiting time, and I absolutely can't be bothered waiting. The drivers that live in the city, they can go home and they can work from home. So it's 20 minutes drive from me from home. So
Sure.
For 16 months, I just worked nights, and I worked mostly into the weekend. So I worked every Friday and Saturday night. And my husband and our friends and family always all work Monday to Friday and have the weekends off. So I had a change, and I tried a system of working 4 days on and 4 days off. So if it was Monday to Thursday, I used to work in the daytime. And then if it was a Friday or Saturday night, I did nights. And it was interesting because several weeks you do 4 days or 4 shifts, but on that there's a couple of that you only do 3. And I was like hanging out to get back out, and I was trying to see if make it work. And it did partially. It put my head in a better space, as I needed to take more time off, because often I only took 1 day, or I might have taken 1 day with 2 or 3 days in between, and I wasn't really getting rest enough. In October last year, I had some surgery, and as soon as I knew that I was going to need to have surgery, I stopped working, because I didn't want to risk getting COVID, because there was a 6-week stand down if you had COVID and then had surgery. So when I came back, one of the issues that I had was actually extreme fatigue. And so I had to manage that really well. And I've probably got back to doing 26 to about, I had a blast. And the maximum we can work before needing a 24-hour break is 70 hours. And I got to 69 and a half hours working.
Wow.
I tell you what, I nearly had the rest of the following week off, because it was really hard. But I made really good money.
Yeah.
And so I try to be, I've got a lot of smarts that I've learned. It's interesting when you watch where the other drivers are in the driver app, passenger app, they will all be sitting in the CBD. So on a Friday and Saturday nights, and all the time they're sitting in the CBD, but the passengers aren't coming from the CBD. Sorry. Central business area, central business district. So that's where all the restaurants and bars and stuff are.
Yep.
So they're coming from home. So they're coming from the suburbs. So Rob and I worked together. We were a really great team. We would sit out. He would sit on one side of the city and I would sit on the other. And we would be really busy, and you would still see the cars sitting in the same place in the city. So as the night went on, you come into the city because they're going back out.
Right.
Excuse me. So it's a bit of strategy, and it's just being careful, because we have a sea border. The other problem is that you can actually get blocked in. And that sometimes can cause a bit of trouble with the and one of the things that Rob and I used to do when we used to sit in the car park, we would park. So one of us was on the city side and one was on the resident side, and we would have a bit of fun as to see who was going to get the next job. And most of the time, if it was on the city side, the person that was sitting on that side got the jobs.
Yep.
So that's there's a bit of strategy there. And
definitely you need to know your markets.
Yeah, we've done the same thing. Being in the suburbs, like everyone's down in the city, and it's like it's 7 o'clock at night. People are in the suburbs wanting to come down. So I would drop somebody off downtown, then turn around, drive back, which I hated doing because it's deadheading. But like, if you want to get a ride, that's what you got to do.
Absolutely. So, and I'm probably one of those drivers that you really hate, and as another driver, because I'm the one I take everything. I pretty much because it's not that busy. If I declined all the little jobs, I wouldn't have any work.
Yeah,
and I've already got to make up for my driving into the city. So I sort of work out. I can look at my mileage and kilometers, and if I'm earning $1 per kilometer, it's a good rate.
Yeah.
So, if I've done 100 kilometers, I might be sitting at $120 or something. So I think it works out at about, it's about 29 cents. That's how I work, and I can look quickly at that. So,
Well, I think for
but-
people who listen to the podcast, they have to understand and remember that this is New Zealand dollars, not
oh,
US
absolutely,
dollars.
and it is a
And
different.
so
It is totally
it's
different.
different there, and so different market. The cool thing here, the big takeaway here is that for you, you have obviously done the math, and it's obviously worth it for you, and you're making good money doing this. You're making so that's what people have to remember. So when you're saying cents and that kind of stuff, don't freak out, people. this is worth it for Janet, obviously, or she wouldn't
absolutely.
be doing it.
Yeah, so there's a few things. The Uber with Uber Pro, the points rewards that we get, and as they build up, when you get to gold, you get distance and direction. You also get some more discounts. Even at diamond, the biggest thing that you get is distance and direction, and that's the biggest information. So when the jobs come up,
Yep.
and they are offered to you, if you're quick enough, you can see. I use Maximo now, and I use Maximo as an auto accept. I can't always be quick enough to actually read it, which is why you use it, because you don't want to be taking your eyes off the road to do that. So
I use it the other way, Janet. I use it the other way. I never put auto accept on. I'm always auto decline. Like I don't, and I actually hate it because the decline is so quick that I can't even, like, sometimes I'm like, because I set my parameter 7 minutes. So if an 8-minute pops up and I'm like, oh, that was a good number, and I can't hit it fast enough. So
yeah, I've had that a couple of times. That's partly why I don't like the decline, because where I sit, I've tried the decline, and the airport, that the city is 20 kilometers from where I live, and the airport is it's actually about 9. So I've tried setting it at 12 kilometers because there's not anything in between that. And then I'll see the jobs will come up, and it'll be 16 kilometers for the jobs when there's a flight coming in, is when you get a 20 kilometer job for a 3-minute drop off in the city. So I've actually got to drive. So I would rather have a pickup at the airport than drive into the city. So that's what I'm trying. And I'll sit there and I'll get a couple of declines, and I'm thinking, I really want to go to work, and I can't bear the decline anymore, because I've got a bit of OCD. I don't like seeing badges on apps that say I've got to do something, or I don't like to see 97%. It's got to be 100% or 0%. So it's cancellations. Pretty much most of the cancellations I've ever had have been when I've had a puker, and I've had a stacked job, and I'm on a job, and I finish it, and the next job is there, and the only way that I can get out of it is that I have to cancel, and I get a bit frustrated with that. But sometimes those jobs that come up, that they might be longer pickups, and then there's the acceptance is about, some of it is about repositioning when they're small. So I might be on the other side of the city, but I actually want to get somewhere else. So by taking the job, it puts me somewhere else. What actually gives. So sometimes, and sort of recently, I had a job where I had 8 minutes. We were in the city, 8 minutes to pick up, and 3-minute drop off. I thought, damn it. But when I picked the guy up, he was going to look at, he'd come to be looking at some accommodation. So here, when they're putting a house up for rental, they organise, however many people are interested, and they all come and view at the same time. So he came to this house viewing, and he said, can I then book you for another trip? I need to go to the airport. So then there was my 18-minute trip. I've learned about that. I've learned a lot about the app, and I've learned about, they say, oh, well, can you drop us off here? Or I said, you need to put it in the app, because the app keeps me hooked on to them. Yeah. And so I just sort of say to the guy, so I'm quick to try and stop sharing. So I turn it so I can't get any more jobs, because sometimes if you're too slow and you haven't picked up their job or their extension, it's getting in between. So then I can actually verbally tell them, I know what it looks like, I know what they're looking for, and say, this is what you need to do. You need to add a stop, So those jobs turn into something bigger.
I got
So
a
that's
couple
pretty
of
cool.
questions as we're wrapping up. One, do you have upfront pricing in New Zealand? Are you seeing what you're making on that, or is it still the old school way?
No, we just get distance and direction. We
Okay.
don't see anything until we get the passengers do, but we don't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish I had that back. I mean, I like the information, but we got paid more when it was the other way. And
Upfront,
then,
yeah.
do you have any tips or tricks? I know we talked a little bit about the suburb thing for anyone else that's listening that maybe, I mean, it might be unique to your market.
Yep,
But
keeping your car tidy. I think people are much more aware of the inside of the car than they are of the outside. My first car was black. My car now is sort of a dark but bright blue, so it does show the dust on the outside. But it's the inside that they want to see clean, and people get in. Sometimes, oh, gee, this is a really nice car. This is nice, and it's just making sure that it's tidy and all that sort of stuff. No crumbs on the floor and stuff like that. So they notice that more. I have disco lights in my car. So Christmas 2019, my first Christmas, which I've now done 4 Christmases. I put the little crystal balls in a set. So I have 2 that are shining on the ceiling and 2 that shine on the floor on the passenger's feet in the back. And it's really interesting. And they change color. And when people are going out and they're party, they're really happy.
Yeah.
And when they come home and they're docile and they're tired, exactly the same lights, they're calming. So, and people remember, oh, you got the disco car. Oh, when we saw your name, we were really pleased. And Gary was out one night and they were talking about Uber and stuff like that. And somebody said, oh, yeah, we went in an Uber the other night and it had lights and it was really cool. And Gary goes, well, that's my wife. It's a talking point as well. So
you got a little bit of street cred.
Yeah, absolutely. So people sort of look around, but there's a bit about knowing the market, and it does take a long time to make it, to know when the busy times are. But it's looking after the passengers. If we've got, especially if it's a busy night, I'll say to the passengers, because a lot of the time we have no cars available come up on the app. And I say, people just think, there's only 1 Uber on tonight, or there's only 2 Ubers, because that's what they're seeing. I say, no, it doesn't mean there's no cars on. It just means that everybody's busy. So what you need to do when it comes up, no cars available, and you get the black bar, tap on the black bar, and then confirm your ride. And Uber, the app will look for a driver for you. It will come back to you. You'll see if they've matched you with a driver, or it will tell you it's stopped looking. And I also warn them about the surge. Now, surge pricing, a lot of people know about it. A lot of people don't. I tell them I can't do anything about it. It's done by an algorithm, and I'm actually very pleased to be able to accept it. I can't decline it, but you need to watch. And I said, you get the information's available when before you confirm. They tell you it's going to cost you $70 to go across the city when it normally costs you $18.
Yeah.
So you make that choice. You can't complain about it later. If you wait, it goes up and down. It changes, and I think they like the fact that they're warned. They know what to do. Yeah. It's when they get caught out and then they look at their bank statement and they've been charged $80 for their trip. Right. So it's some of it's about looking after the passengers.
Information.
I used to put, I never put I don't know, what do you call them, lollies or sweets in the car, because I keep thinking, they unwrap them, wrapped lollies. Yep. They're going to leave rubbish in my car. So, but I did always have bottles of water, and people became entitled as if, it's here for me, I'm going to take it. And like, I remember this one lady got out of the car, walked away, came back, opened the car door, took the bottle of water out and walked away. The adults never said thank you, but the kids always amazed me, because when they were traveling with their parents, they would say, can I have the water? And thank you. But that passengers just take the vomit bags, for goodness sake. Why?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, mine are still there.
Yeah. So yeah, I have never. I got a lot of feedback and good advice from Sam. And Sam's thing about carrying a rubbish bag. And so I've got a big, bright red rubbish bag that is in the door right beside me. So if somebody's going to be sick, out it comes and I hand it to them. Here, don't be sick in my car. And it's saved a few. But yeah, I've had a few that have opened the window and then thrown up out the window. And yeah.
It always hits the car.
Yeah.
Well, Janet, thank you so much for joining us. You've been a super fan of the show. You've always been supportive, and we can't thank you enough for coming on and telling us your story. It's unique for being in a different country.
Right.
I feel what's the word? Not grateful. I feel happy that I know you, that we can have this conversation, because
you're not grateful.
Grateful. There it is. What an idiot.
Well, 169 days until we leave New Zealand to come to.
I was gonna say, I can't wait to meet you in person.
Look, we're just looking forward to it, and it's really interesting because I talked to Gary about, Jason, yes, but he's got those names, and now we're talking about Chris and Gabe, and who was that? What are we talking about? So a lot more of the time, sometimes I'm listening to the Telegram messages and he comes home or whatever, and says, oh hey, you want to hear this. So really looking forward to that. So I mean, Uber looks like it's starting to be something that we are definitely going to be using more, because in some places it just seems the biggest option. So it's learning all that stuff. So that's been helpful through the Telegram group as well. Gabe's giving me some about Detroit. Leo was the same. So so really looking forward to the picnic. So
cool.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for coming on the show.